Good morning. Project number 4 was making sausage. Project number 5 was making a video of making sausage. So I just got it done. Here it is. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, the first thing to get is some pork butt. They're usually 8 to 10 pounds. And then you have to get some hog casing, which is basically pig intestines. This recipe is for about 10 pounds of pork butt, and you'll need about 16 feet of casing. I'll put this recipe on the back of the video so you can see what's in it, but it's all pretty basic ingredients, and I guess a fair amount of spices. I didn't have any ground fiddle, so I ground it myself. This is coarse black pepper. I think any kind of pepper will work. You can adjust the recipe, to your taste. It's a recipe, not a formula. If you're using whole pork butt, you need to cut it into smaller pieces so that you can feed it into your meat grinder. If you don't have a meat grinder or you don't feel like doing that, you can buy ground pork at the grocery store or at restaurant supply stores, already ground up and mixed with the proper amount of fat. Whatever you do, keep it cold. Pork can spoil pretty easily if it's allowed to warm up. For small batches, a KitchenAid meat grinder works great. In addition to the grinder, there's a stuffing horn attachment that will allow you to fill the casings just fine. We usually do larger batches though with the neighbors, and so we use a larger capacity grinder and a larger stuffer. You want about a 28% fat content in your ground pork, and pork butt is about that percentage. That's why I like to use it. So don't worry about when you see all this fat coming out of the grinder. We'll mix it up later and it'll be just right. If you're worried about too much fat in your pork sausage, you can cut it out, or you could use a different cut of pork. You could even use pork tenderloin if you wanted to. But I don't think it tastes as good. I pre-mix all my dry ingredients and then I add them to the ground pork slowly. I'll put a little bit in, mix it up, put a little bit more in till it's all in. You can put your water and your wine in at this point too and mix it up really good. Make sure the water is really cold. It's not so important with the wine. You should probably taste the wine at this point and make sure it's okay. Once it's all mixed up, you want to make sure it's the right consistency. It's pretty squishy, but not soupy. If you add a little more water, that's fine, or if you leave a little out. Pretty hard to get the water out once you put it in. Now we have to get the stuffer ready. There's two parts to that. You have to load the horn and you have to load the stuffer. So get your casings that you have put in ice water and bring them over. Get a little fat off of the pork and grease up that horn a little bit. It helps the casing slide on a little easier. And then you'll get a piece of casing out, find the end somehow. It's a little bit like finding a worm in a bucket full of string. But slide it onto the horn, and then you just slide the casing onto the horn, pile it up next to the stuffer, and just keep going until you get to the other end. You don't need to tie a knot or anything in the casing to keep the ground pork from coming out. Once you get a foot or so of sausage out, it'll keep itself in there. Now that the casing's on the horn, we can load the stuffer. You don't want to wait too long to get the meat in the stuffer and get the casing stuffed, because when you put the salt and other seasonings in the meat, it starts to set up. So if you wait too long, it gets really hard to push through the stuffer. So load it in and get started. This is kind of a two-person job. When we're doing large quantities of sausage, we'll have the stuffer clamped to the table, and one person could do it pretty easily that way, but this time it's loose and I need to kind of hang on to it, and Wendy's gonna catch the sausage as it comes out. It really helps to do this on a large baking sheet of some kind. That allows the sausage, when it comes out, to slide away from the stuffer. If it doesn't do that, it will just lay there and you'll stuff it so full it splits. Once again, you don't need to tie the ends with the spices in the meat. It'll set up and it'll stay there just fine. But now's the time when you want to link them. You just decide how big a link you want. You start out by pinching it off and spinning it away from you. Then you skip a link, pinch the other one off, and spin it again. So you skip one and spin one. This keeps you from unwinding the link that you just spun. And just go through the whole length until you get them the way you want them. You can do them longer or short, whatever you want, whatever size you want. Make them your size. At this point, you just reload the horn, reload the stuffer, and do it again until you run out of pork. And there you go. We just bag them and freeze them. Make sure you put the date on there and how many links are in there. And enjoy the sausage. I'll put my recipe up so you can copy it. But you can find all sorts of recipes online. This is just one that I made up and it was really good. So when I make Italian sausage, this is what I use. I really like it.